Acting, singing, dancing. It's the life of glamour, right? Yeah, I think that's how it looks from the outside, but we're going to have the opportunity today to talk to and hear from a legitimate star of stage, screen, and television who is going to give us a little bit of the inside scoop about her own career and what the glamour of show business really looks and feels like. So put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it is time once again for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Born and raised in Tampa, Florida, of Spanish, Cuban, and Argentinian descent, Alexis Carra Girbés graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Theater Studies, cum laude, from Yale University. Good credentials. Dance has always been her first love, and she has studied from places such as Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater and Princeton Ballet, and with the Broadway legends Anne Reinking and Gwen Verdon. During her junior year at Yale, she toured the country with the Tony Award-winning musical Fosse, which cemented her love for musical theater. Upon graduation, she headed for New York and quickly procured roles in Broadway shows, including Wicked, Sweet Charity, understudying the role of Nikki opposite Christina Applegate, and Fame on 42nd Street. Her favorite regional credits include Lola in Damn Yankees, Cassie in A Chorus Line, and Gypsy in Gypsy. After closing the Broadway show The Pirate Queen, Alexis moved to Los Angeles and since then has worked continuously. She has guest starred on drama series such as Grey's Anatomy, Castle, The Mentalist, Bones, and NCIS, while also working on comedy shows such as Young and Hungry, Anger Management, and The Tracy Ullman Show. She was a series regular on two TV series, the ABC comedy Mixology, created by the writers of The Hangover, as well as the freeform series Recovery Road. Alexis has a prominent guest star role in the critically acclaimed miniseries Fosse Verdon on FX, starring Sam Rockwell and Michelle Williams. Her most recent film is a Disney feature film directed by Andy Fickman called Christmas Again, starring opposite Scarlett Estevez and Daniel Sunyata. She continues to teach. Oh boy, I'm sorry, got to do this. Thank you, pardon me. She continues to take and teach dance and has been focused most recently on choreographing and directing. Alexis recently finished choreographing Damn Yankees at Musical Theater West and has also directed and choreographed shows such as West Side Story, Dear Edwina, Honk, and Bye Bye Birdie. She has assisted on Fox's So You Think You Can Dance, as well as assisting choreographers Andy Blankenbuehler and Wayne Salento. She leads a creative, artistic life teaching across the globe, and now is an audition coach and mentor with her performing arts educational company, Broadway Arts Community, co-founded with her best friend, Chrissy Whitehead. Alexis lives in Tampa, Florida with her husband, Chris, and 3.5-year-old firecracker son, Pierce. And as you'll hear when we get into the conversation, getting ready in a few weeks to receive the arrival of her second son very soon here. So I hope that you will join me in welcoming this conversation with Alexis Carra Girbés. All right. Well, Alexis, welcome and thank you for joining us today on Coffee Breaks with Steve. It's great to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. It's an honor to have you
sure
on the
is.
show. You know, it's always interesting to talk to people who have a career in what we call the entertainment industry, or shortcut to showbiz. But I think lots of times there are a lot of misconceptions about what that career looks like. And I think, well, just to really start, talk about kind of the early days, Alexis. When did you know that you wanted to be in this business, and when did you get started?
Well, it all started at the ripe age of 2. I mean, seriously, at 2.5, my mom said I had so much energy that she took me to the dance studio, and apparently this local dance studio, I walked into a class that was already happening and went up to the mirror and started posing and making faces. And and the owner of the studio, she said, "Do you think she's ready?" And the owner like saw me and she goes, "She's ready. She's ready." So I like to tell that story just because I think I've always sort of enjoyed being on stage and performing, and I think dance was my way into that.
Okay.
I did have a lot of energy, and I'm a very physical person. My friends joke with me that I don't ever sit still. There's like a leg in the air, or I'm on the floor stretching. It's just in my DNA, and I see that in my son too. Just that need for the physical energy. But in terms of like the actual entertainment industry, I think I grew up in a very rigorous academic environment. Like I was also raised in a household of doctors and PhDs, and with my mom and my dad. And I think academics was really important to me, but I felt like dance specifically and eventually theater became this place where I could just relax and have fun, but also like get this performing bug kind of met, this like, desire to perform. So I think the thought of like, having a career kind of didn't really happen until high school, when I started to take it a little bit more seriously and training in it. And then of course, as soon as you start taking it more seriously in the training, that's when all the stuff in your head starts to happen. Where, am I good enough? Like, which comes along with like the teenage angst years. And so, so I think in high school is when it really dawned on me. And then I was fortunate enough to go to a school that fostered the arts, but I have a BA in theater studies from Yale. So the place, it was just such an incredible environment of people who were creating things and having dialogues about things, and there was just so much access and opportunity that's where everything really just kind of solidified for me. And I thought I've got to try to go for this. So
do you remember the first play you were ever in?
The first play I was in? It was actually we did shows like in elementary school, and I don't remember the specific, like if there was a scripted show, but I remember in 6th grade, my drama teacher, Mr. Fessler, who is now actually a Broadway producer, which is just insane. We wrote a script as a class, and we performed that script. And I can't remember the title of it, but I remember playing the dancer in the script, like about our class. And I remember performing this for, some sort of convocation or something for the middle school.
Wow.
And then the first real musical I ever did was in 8th grade, and that was Oliver.
Oh, who were you in Oliver?
I played Nancy.
Nancy. I was in Oliver in high school, and I played the Artful Dodger.
I'm sure you did. I was going to say.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
But I could see you as Nancy. You would be a natural for Nancy.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was it was one of those one of those experiences that I'll never forget. So,
that first time really being on a stage with the lights in your face and the audience out there, and that the sounds and the sights and the feelings, I don't think that ever goes away, does it?
No, and I had been doing that through dance, like at dance recitals and dance competitions. Like I'd been dancing really seriously, literally I started at 2 and I haven't stopped. So I'd had that chance to perform through dance, but in terms of theater and actually like having dialogue and singing and telling this specific story in a cast, it was in middle school. And I we did something in 7th grade too. I can't remember, but that production of Oliver was the first time where I had like a role, and I really was like, oh, this is incredible. That's the one I'll never forget.
Who were your idols growing up? Who were the professionals, the people that were on television, that were in the movies, that were on stage, who you idolized and wanted to be like? Do you recall?
Well, I do. Whenever I go over to my aunt's house, which is, I'm an only child, but I was very close to my cousin, and my aunt Cindy we would stay up late and watch these old movies that had, like the movie Calamity Jane with Doris Day.
Yeah.
And, Singing in the Rain and White Christmas. And so she loved these MGM movies, and I loved them too. And watching Lucille Ball. So I kind of was introduced, I think, to like a movie musical, but through the lens of the MGM Golden Age. And I just thought Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire and Vera Ellen and Sid Charisse and Doris Day, that, Pajama, or what was the Rock Hudson? It was another Doris Day movie. Pillow Talk?
Pillow Talk.
No. Pillow Talk.
Yeah, that was
like
right.
I loved that movie. These old movies. And so I really kind of, like, I loved Doris Day, and I loved listening to older music. So I don't know if I had a specific idol. It wasn't really until high school, and I started my idols tended to be in dance. Like I was always looking at dance companies. But then when I met and started, had the privilege of being trained by Anne Ranking and Gwen Verdon at the Broadway Theater Project, which was here in Tampa, actually.
Interesting.
She became very quickly one of my idols, and I can't use the word really mentor, because I didn't get to have that quite close of a relationship with her, but she changed my life. And so Anne Ranking affected so many people's lives in such a positive way. And she ended up actually teaching for Broadway Arts Community, which we'll get to. So it was a very full circle event. And that's where I met my co-founder, Chrissy Fossey, because of Anne Ranking. So it's like, she sort of has been this angel in my life. And so I would say she's an idol of mine.
I can imagine. Anne Ranking is, you talk about, among the people who just stand out as having been almost having created the genres that we associate with modern theater, modern musicals, and so much around the Fosse
legacy. Yeah.
Legacy. I mean, that's a biggie. Yeah. Okay. I don't often get starstruck, but just hearing you say that, I'm a little bit starstruck. It's right. I mean,
you and me both. Wow. I mean, I'm starstruck by her. Yeah.
So kind of in that thought process, Alexis, you're now coming up high school, you're in college, and now theater, dance, music are all starting to become something very real in terms of your future. Do you have a point, something that you did, a production that you kind of go, okay, that was my big break. That was the turning point from going from this is something I want to pursue to something that now could really become the career?
Yes, the answer is I had a very clear moment. And what's so funny is very recently, which I know we'll get to this, but I just moved back to my hometown of Tampa, Florida, which is where Broadway Theater Project started. And I reconnected with a woman who's about my age. I'm 42. And she was a student and an intern at Broadway Theater Project. And she remembered this exact moment because she was the one who came to get me out of class to bring me to this moment, which I'm about to explain. So she said, I remember coming to get you. And she took me into a stairwell with Anne Ranking and Deb McWaters, who was Anne's partner in this Broadway Theater Project and assistant at the time. And Anne Ranking offered me a contract in the first national tour of Fosse in a stairwell at the University of South Florida. And this girl, Lauren Valiente, was the one who came to get me and bring me to that. So she said, I knew that, like, I'm coming to get you knowing that you're like about to have this life-changing moment. And I was like, oh, and I remembered it was her. So we were just talking about that 2 nights ago. So yeah, I remember Anne sitting in the stairwell and just offering me this contract to be a swing in the first national tour of Fosse. And, I think it's one of those things where you really have worked so hard and then you're in the right place at the right time. And it changed the entire course of my life from that
right place.
City.
You just said right place at the right time. And over again, you hear in the entertainment industry, but in so many careers, that's a factor. But I think particularly when we talk about acting, theater, movies, television, whatever it might be, that people assume that once you've kind of started to make a name for yourself, you've got those big breaks, you've got those turning points. It's just smooth sailing from there. You don't have to work at it anymore. They're coming after you. That's not the reality, is it?
No, it's so interesting. I just was talking about this. I went to my 20th year college reunion a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this idea of the arrival fallacy. And it happens in any career field. Doctors experience it, lawyers experience it, entrepreneurs, artists. It just, and this is something that, to just wrap up your last question, like doing Fosse, that's where I met my best friend and co-founder who's been on your podcast, Chrissy Whitehead, on that show. So it was, again, like so many life-changing things. I met another like lifelong sister friend, Estelle Tomasovic, now Estelle Shaw. So it's like, it literally changed my life. And so I think what's interesting about that is I was I think 20 years old when that happened. And in some ways, Steve, that was the dream. Like I arrived, that was it. At 20, I had made it, because my dream, I remember when I saw Fosse on Broadway, and I thought to myself, if I ever get a chance to do this show, I can just die happy. Like that's all I wanted to do. And then I got to do it. And then you go, and now what? And so this idea, back to my reunion, we're talking about this idea of arrival fallacy, because now in my 40s, and Chrissy and I speak about this a lot with our students, there really is no place that you ever arrive to where then you're just there. Because I think part of being a part of happiness is to be in a state of a growth mindset. And so you arrive someplace, and we all know that, the quote or the metaphor that you climb the mountain, you get to the top, and then you see that there's a whole other mountain that you have to climb. Yeah. So it's like, not have to, but that you could climb. Mm-hmm. And so the arrival fallacy, it gives you this sense of, when I get this, then I will be happy, or then I will be successful. So it's a little bit of it's a trap, of course, because we never really arrive. And, now at this point in my life, and I think that happens so much with, I don't know your audience, but like, I'm very much in a place in my life where my life is really more centering around my family. I'm a mother. I'm expecting my second son. I'm 34 weeks pregnant. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm living near my family. And so even and we've talked about this, in marriage, in motherhood, especially, like, when I become a mom, I will be happy. Like, you will also be exhausted and terrified and frustrated. And I think people know that intellectually, but we put so much pressure on ourselves to achieve a certain thing or to get somewhere. And then we get there and it's not all it's cracked up to be, or there's another place to get to, and we don't have the tools to actually then enjoy the moment that we have arrived at, because we're always looking to the next thing. So I find that, as I get older and redefine what happiness and success are, what those two things are, it really is a practice of being grateful and happy with exactly what you have and where you are, and finding that, as we say at BAC, finding that joy in the work, and which is what Anne Ranking said, the joy is in the work, to circle back to her, but finding that relishing the process and the people that you're meeting on the way. Another celebrity that I'm very lucky to be, somewhat friends with, is Taye Diggs. He said his choreography partner is a very dear friend of mine. And when he came to BAC, he told our students, who I really am is everything in between all the achievements on my resume. I'm all the lines. I'm everything in between. That's really who I am. And I just loved that he said that to them, because you think about the resume and the achievements, but it's all the people and the time and the process and the peaks and the valleys in between that really define who you are.
You know, that reminds me of a lesson I remember a mentor of mine talking about years ago, saying that when we die, not to get morbid here, but when we die and you look at a gravestone, there's a birth year and there's a death year, and all that's in between there on that gravestone is a dash. And yet that's really the key to who we are. Yep. It's not those two dates. It's that little dash in between is all the people, all the moments, all the experiences, the relationships. That's what's important. That's what it comes down to, really.
It really does. And then, of course, you know, everybody needs to, you know, make enough money to put a roof over their heads, to put food on the table, to give your families and your kids a chance to succeed in life. You know, there's all these things that you can't live sort of in this fantasy that, you know, I'm not suggesting that, but I do believe that, especially when it relates to the entertainment industry, like if any of your audience are pursuing that, or, you know, especially our students at BAC that we'll share these, you know, these interviews with, it's easy to forget that there is no really arrival where you make it, where then the rest, like you said, is coasting. I've had so many moments where I've thought that that's what this job will be, and this is what this job will do, and it hasn't done it. But it's opened up other things in other ways, or it's given me more clarity in some ways. So I think another key is just really constantly staying curious and staying positive. And I love the Tony Robbins quote that people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10.
Wow. Yeah.
You know? So I'm about to embark. I'm sort of embarking on a possible, and I know I am embarking on a 10-year project here in Tampa. And I mean, I've just had the very beginning mutterings of meetings and creating the relationships, but I have this vision for theater and an arts community here. And it's already started, but to kind of take it to another level, and specifically in the area of Ybor City, which is a historic district of Tampa. And it's a 10-year vision. It's not going to happen next year. It's a 10-year process of what I think that this could be, and how I would really love to see it go. So I'm sort of in that mindset today. Literally, I had a couple meetings this morning, so it was sort of in that place.
I like that. And, you know, we've talked about that in the past, you and I think anytime you have vision and you have a passion that accompanies that vision, those are our motivators. Those are our drivers, right? I mean, those things propel us forward. I want to come back to you talking about family. Mm-hmm. You know, you started this career obviously before you got married, before you started to grow your family, and I just wonder what were the key changes that you found between that before, you know, there's that kind of timeline point when family became a key factor in your life and in your career. What was that like? What was the switch like?
Well, I think obviously who you choose to partner with, and if then you choose to procreate with that partner, if that's something that in your desire and in your and if that, you know, works out, it's not for everybody, and obviously you know, a lot of people have to go through a lot of challenges with having children. I think that, you know, getting married and marrying somebody who is not another artist. I'm married to a financial advisor, and, you know, he's just not in the business at all. Helped me to kind of not rise above, but have a broader perspective about life, and that living your life, not just for your career, is also success. Like it's is also is in some ways more rewarding. And so my husband, you know, God bless him, like he had no idea what he was getting into marrying an actor. He met me when I was like on a TV series and, you know, had a publicist and all this kind of thing. And then like the show didn't get picked up again. And suddenly like here I was. And then I got on another TV series and then like I didn't work for 2 years. So, you know, he sort of was on this journey with me before I really kind of had the perspective that I have now. So I've really grown up with him. And he was starting his company very early on we were engaged and he started a company. So I think that, you know, marrying him and kind of going through these ups and downs together has defined a lot of who I am now. And then of course, as you know, as soon as you start having kids as a family, it just changes everything. Overnight. Like it's people say that, but then when you do it, you're like, wow.
now I'm starting to get it.
Now I get it. Now I get it. Now like at 42 with a 3.5-year-old and another one on the way, I'm like, okay, I think I can say that I think I'm an adult now. Like I think I've graduated to adult. I'm definitely adulting at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not living in this fantasy of the entertainment industry. Like I think it's very easy to do that when you live in a place like Los Angeles, because it's just a whole different world. So
yeah,
I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. I think there's a lot that's profound about that, and there's a lot that's just very basic and practical.
Totally.
About the realities of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's also one of the cool things about, you know, I think about how we sort of value celebrities and things like that in this culture. And not that that's a bad thing, but we do put certain celebrities or people on a pedestal for either things that they've achieved or because we see them in a way that's, you know, kind of like these other than type of people.
Yep.
And I think to myself, like, you know, Tom Hanks, like he is a massive star and he is clearly a incredible talent and touched so many people's lives with the roles that he's done. And, but he's also like a dad and he still had to like be a part of bed and bath time and, you know, with his kids and like, and that balance of, that so many parents go through of work and career and then alone time. And I just think that, you know, we're kind of all just sort of figuring it out as we go. Nobody really knows what we're doing. And I think about that all the time.
Yes.
No one really knows what they're doing. People are constantly figuring it out. No one has, there's no right way or there's no textbook. Even Tom Hanks has no clue what he's doing. He may know how to,
That's right.
He knows how to act. He's figured some of that out now, obviously.
Right.
But, you know, when you add it all up together, no one really knows what they're doing. And then that makes it just all feel like, oh, we're just all human. It's all humanity.
We're all in it together. Yes.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question that I always think is insightful. What would you have done if the career in entertainment had not panned out? Did you have a plan B?
Not really.
Good.
I knew I had a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, like, even though my degree at Yale is a BA in theater studies, I knew that meant something. Like that if I had to kind of switch paths or if I wanted to go to law school or something like that I had a bachelor's degree and I had an education and I had some critical thinking skills and I had some other passions. I could have been a double major with religious studies too, because I took so many religious, I was very interested in theology and religious studies and psychology. And so I knew I had other things that kind of stimulated me intellectually. So I think I just thought, and the truth is Steve, there have been, I can't even tell you how many times where I've been like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to go back to school. I want to go to the Yale Divinity School. I'm going to go back and get my master's in social work or whatever it is, because it's been so hard to stay in the entertainment industry in the way that I had like sort of told myself that I had to be in it. And that's part of what has been in my 40s and as a mom and a wife, redefining, well, how can I be in the entertainment industry, but on my terms?
Yeah.
And how can I be in the entertainment industry and not have to live in Los Angeles? So I'm still figuring that out because I have no clue what I'm doing.
Turning the corner a little bit, you talked about some other passions, and you mentioned social work, you mentioned divinity, and that all of those things point to a care for people, which I think is relevant in your life. But I know that one of your passions, along with Chrissy, is to support people in the entertainment industry, not only in terms of educating, coaching, training, encouraging, but with a focus on self-care and wellness. Why is that important to you, and why do you think it's important in the industry?
That's such a great question. I think especially and I loop Chrissy into this conversation because she and I have created this organization together, Broadway Arts Community, because we saw how being in the industry, and we've experienced being in the industry the way we had been for over 20 years, that the sort of the toll it took on our mental health and even physical health. And we wanted to be able to give our younger generation a little bit of a head start on how to think about how they can take care of themselves so they don't make maybe the same mistakes that we made. Be who you needed to be when you were younger. I never really had a real mentor, and I think I had teachers that I felt very connected to, and that I felt that believed in me. But I didn't have a mentor in the sense that, like, somebody who had kind of done the thing and had a career in the theater and then could say, like, here's some things I've learned along the way. Watch out for this. Think about this. Value, in that kind of way. And I think that for Chrissy and I, that's really been an inspiration. And it's just based off of what we have learned through our own experience, and how you need to, if you want to sustain any kind of career in the entertainment industry, what's happening in your brain and how you approach the mindset of it is more important than anything.
And you and Chrissy, you built that into BAC. And I mean, I'm just going to mention this. We don't have to go into a lot of detail right now, but I am going to put some links on with this and post show so people can see for themselves. But there are things that you have incorporated into BAC in terms of your preparation and your training and coaching of, I was going to say younger artists. It's not just younger artists, it's artists of all age, but you've built some of those elements in there. And there are things that you're continuing to work on and look into to expand on that process, on that portion of it, to really focus in on making sure that the support structures are there, that the things that need to be there are in place for people in the industry and people coming into the industry with the additional stresses that go with all of it.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah. I mean, and I think given just some of our own personal background, I mean, obviously Chrissy talks about her show on when you interviewed her, and her journey with her own mental health, and the same with mine. I grew up in I had a very loving mother and grandparents, but I grew up with a very unstable father who was bipolar and, verbally abusive. And I think like everyone has in their life has a connection to somebody to some sort of mental health. And I use the word issue for lack of a better word, mental health concern, mental, right. And it's still an area that we have a hard time talking about because there's still stigma around it. And I think in an industry where you're being asked to tell stories that demand for you to be kind of a open vessel of emotion, whether that's you're telling the story of, you know, in Into the Woods, you're playing the baker's wife for Little Red Riding Hood, or you're doing, you know, Long Day's Journey into Night, you know, Eugene O'Neill, and it's like this heavy play. As an actor, as a performer, your job is to be this vessel to allow the story and these emotions to flow through you. And if you can't kind of have that connection to your own emotions and your own story, I find that it is harder to then be that vessel and to access somebody else's story. Now, I think there are some people who kind of actually can do that. I'm not saying that that's the only way. I know for me, the more I know myself and the more confident I feel in who I am, the more I feel like I can just release into the story. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's not just about the acting technique or the voice technique. It's really like about what is your mindfulness technique? What's your day-to-day life, your daily routines that you do for your own brain and heart and soul? So
definitely,
we like to incorporate that.
We're getting short on time, but I have some sort of, I'll call them lightning round questions just to kind of wrap up. Not too many, but kind of coming back to the whole show business career. Do you have a favorite role? Now, you mentioned you've been involved in some TV series. You've done a number of movies. You've done things on stage, both regionally, on Broadway, regionally, internationally, etc. Do you have a favorite role? I know we already talked about Fosse, but do you have a favorite role in any of the genres that you've been involved in that is just like,
oh my gosh,
or a favorite show that you've been a part of?
I think probably Damn Yankees. I loved playing Lola. I thought it was so fun. Yeah. I also really loved my experience on the set of Fosse Verdon.
Okay.
And working that was sort of a favorite job, a pinch me job. I think I still feel like my favorite roles are still yet to be played. I think that they're coming. Yeah.
Do you have, is there a role that you always wish you could have played, or that you still, a specific one that I still want to do that?
Yes. I would like to play Roxy on Broadway, and I would like to play the role of Charity.
Those are okay.
2 Gwen Verdon roles. I know.
Yeah,
fantastic. On the journey of Anne Ranking. Yeah. I mean, those two are like what I can think of off the top of my head. Perfect. And then I have a couple of my own projects that I've written a script about my ancestors in Ybor City here, which I had mentioned earlier. If I ever get to see that project greenlit and, you know, on my TV, I will, to quote what I said when I was 20 and got Fosse, I could just die happy. And that's so I don't necessarily have a role in that, but the role of creating that and being a part of that.
Finally, do you have any advice that you would share with people who might be watching this, who would say, I would love to pursue, or I would love to try to build and grow a career in some aspect of the entertainment industry? Any advice that you would give those people trying to be up and comers?
Yeah. My advice would be to find your community and do everything you can to love and support them. And they will do that to you, because you cannot do this business without a real community of people to support you. And just keep trying to be better and leave the world a little bit of a better place. Like, just continue to grow in baby steps. Be a little bit of a better actor, whatever that means to you. Like preparing a little bit more. You know, for me, it was like being early to auditions because I had such a time management issue. Like whatever it is, like just keep trying to be better a little bit, baby steps, just a little bit better, and leave the world, whatever that means to you, a little bit of a better place. which is like great. Leading me with kindness and empathy and compassion.
All right. Alexis, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
That went by so fast.
It goes by fast, doesn't it? It's just, and there's more.
Totally.
We could spend a lot more time chatting about all of this, but I appreciate you taking the time to do it. And obviously wishing you all the best with the upcoming arrival. It's going to add to that dynamic of your family and with the roles you have yet to play.
Thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure, Steve. I know your listeners really value you and the community you bring and everything that you do to make the world a better place. So thank you.
Thanks. All right. Let me just say again, thank you for being a part of Coffee Breaks with Steve, to joining me today and every week for this virtual coffee table time. I want to once again thank Alexis Carra Girbés for taking the time to be with us. And I encourage you to learn more about her. Find her shows and movies online. You can find a lot of them streaming on Amazon Prime, on Hulu, on Netflix, and go out and see how she actually performs when she's in a show or a movie. It's kind of fun to watch. With that, I'm just going to, you heard Alexis talk about it, about how we can make a difference. And I just invite you, as I do each week, to please find a way to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.